This week's episode of This Is Only a Test is made possible with support from Storyblocks. Every creator should have a Storyblocks membership. They make it easy for you to bring all your stories to life without having to worry about adding additional time, budget, or resources to your projects. Storyblocks has an ever-growing library of over 1 million high-quality and, most importantly, royalty-free stock assets, including 4K footage, music images, Premiere and After Effects templates, and more. You can even use Storyblocks if you're a member of a large creative team or marketing agency. Learn more and subscribe today at storyblocks.com/onlyattest. Once again, that's storyblocks.com/onlyattest.
Hey, let's start the show.
For Thursday, March 11th, 2021, welcome to This Is Only a Test, the official podcast of Tested.com. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show this week. It feels like we were only podcasting, but maybe 4 or 5 days ago, less than a week ago. We had a late show last week and on schedule this week. So maybe not a lot of news to talk about, but still fun to get together, especially with my two friends here. Kishore Hari, looking good with your button-up shirt.
Thank you. I decided to shower today. It's an extra special day here in the pandemic. Actually, I am super fired up and ready to go. The NHL announced a new TV rights deal with ESPN. Good days are coming again this fall. So I couldn't be more fired up. Let's do this.
Keep up your ESPN Disney Plus subscription. 1 out of 100 million plus. I also like, if you're watching the video here, Kishore's, if you're not watching the video, I'll describe to you. Kishore's gingham button-up shirt matches, is color coordinated with his headset, and that is mightily impressive.
Yeah, that was definitely not intentional. I'll just say that. Jeremy Williams is also here.
Jeremy, how you doing?
I'm well, gentlemen.
Your headphones also match your black hoodie, so I mean he has that going for him.
It also matches my macro chip coaster. Have you seen these on Twitter? Jason Kuhn makes them. He's a hacker modder maker. It's bit coaster feet, but it looks like a microchip, and he makes them. All different styles. You can get like the microchip that runs the Uno. This happens to be the one that's on the Pi, and it's a coaster, and it's made out of slate, and I love it.
What magnification is that?
What do you mean?
Yeah, it's like a material. Can you hear it?
Yeah, that's slate stone.
Yeah.
What magnification would that be?
Yeah, right. I have no idea. Yeah, many.
Yeah, many times. Yeah. How are you guys doing since the past 5 days? Any fun projects over the weekend? Things to update us on?
Oh my gosh, no. It rained today. I went out in the rain. That was exciting.
It's gorgeous day out in San Francisco. I know, Jeremy, you cut out last week early before we did our WandaVision talk, and I don't want to revisit necessarily.
Yeah, good.
But did you have you caught up?
No. I think that speaks to like one, the amount of free time I have, but 2, my interest level in that show. I am curious, but I have not afforded the what is it, hour and a half I need to finish it up, to wrap it up. So we'll see. I'll get there.
Wow. All right. Well, Falcon Winter Soldier starts debuting next week, and in this interim week between the Marvel MCU TV shows, we have, I believe, a behind-the-scenes special about the making of WandaVision, which I'm going to be super into. But come on, you got to finish it. I think Kishore and I both agreed that the second to last episode was the one to watch and had the most MCU implications, or felt most like in that continuity.
Were your Marvel appetites satisfied, though, at the end of the series? No.
Conspiracy theorist Kishore says no, because he participated in the headcanon of all his wild, in-depth comic expectations. Yeah. I felt very, very satisfied with what they were able to explore.
All right.
Maybe this is something I don't want to dive too much into it in the pop culture segment, but there was a Twitter thread about how this type of show, which you could categorize as like a mystery box show, which is in the past 15 years, like Lost was your first mystery box show. The mystery box, famously, the J.J. Abrams, TED Talk, where you talk about what he loves about why he loves mystery and how he uses that for his kind of effective storytelling, basically using MacGuffins and building a long form narrative where you're hooking the audience, whether it's a viewer or listener or reader, right from the beginning with mysteries to unpack. This was a mystery box show. They opened with a bunch of question marks. They opened with the first 3 episodes here, with not giving you enough of this connective tissue to tie it back to the MCU, but really opening the door for a lot of theorizing. And so shows like Westworld, like you see all these network shows, all these cable shows having this element of, even a show like True Detective, a mystery. But it feeds into, when you intersect that type of storytelling with the fan, the fan culture of fan writing, fan fiction, of background knowledge, of all like the kind of ancillary storytelling around it that comes from the community, less so as the creators. Those can often come ahead and butt at the end of it, where the storyteller is kind of shoehorned into trying to nail the landing and unravel mystery to satisfaction of audiences, but the audiences maybe were never satisfied because they're set up to be disappointed. Just putting it out there. My point is maybe stop writing mystery shows. Not every show needs to be a mystery box show.
I think it's fun every now and again. I think we just have to rein in some of the theories that were frankly enabled a little bit by Marvel. They knew what.
That's what I'm saying. By the format, I think the format and their like the one of the reasons Marvel's so successful is because of the fandom and because of how passionate and all this, 100 years of close to 100 years of history in the comics that they can dive into, right? All these kind of the YouTube channels and blogs and everything, the deep dives, that works to Marvel's favor, keeps people invested.
You know what? It's the enablers who certainly do bear some blame, but it is not, you can't give them all of it. It does fall on the shoulders of those who are addicted. It's the people who have the addiction to all of this kind of manufacturing of theories.
Blaming the users, huh?
No, I mean, fought for the users, Jeremy.
I mean, yeah, fine. I'm not upset with the show. I thought it was fine. And actually I thought it was good. So I'm actually not upset about the fan theory kind of stuff, except for like the couple things that they leaked out there that didn't have a resolution. Yeah, I take total responsibility for it, but I'm also saying I enjoyed the process of going down those theory rabbit holes. I think it's fun every now and again. They just can't do it for every show.
Yeah.
That can't be a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can't take it too seriously. Like, your headcanon cannot override your enjoyment and understanding of what, you can't put the show on a pedestal and be disappointed when it just doesn't match up exactly with what you had in mind. If you had something great in mind, start writing, right? Start writing your own stuff, right? Anyway, that's all the WandaVision I want to talk about, because there's some other stuff to talk about. Well, let's jump to a top story. Let's do that.
Top story this week.
It's been a while since we've had kind of a COVID health update. And I want to bring it to the top of the show since the last time, Kishore, you dove deep into the variants that were popping up and the things we've been seeing in the news. And obviously we've had this massive vaccine rollout with an increasing number of people vaccinated every day, really good numbers. But what is the state of that, and what can you tell us about things to come in the next couple weeks to months?
Yeah, I'll say I'm going to have a very US-centric view of things just because that's where we're situated, and that's the area that I'm more familiar with. So apologies to our overseas listeners that this is going to be US-centric. So the rate of vaccinations in this country is roughly about between 2 and 2.4 vaccinations a day. These are doses. So if you're receiving the Moderna or Pfizer, that means you're receiving the first or second dose, or you're getting the single dose Johnson & Johnson vaccine that was rolled out last week. At this pace, it'll take just under 6 months to fully vaccinate 75%, which would be the total eligible population able to get this, because right now all those vaccines are only approved for people largely 16 and up. Most of them are 18 and up. There's one that's approved for 16. And there's about 21, 22% of the population that's below that age. So the first thing to note, the pace is picking up very fast. 2, there was data released yesterday from the US government that showed that cases in long-term nursing home facilities, which are responsible for the lion's share of deaths related to COVID in this country, cases in those facilities are down 96%, which means that we're going to see the death rate continue to fall down. Right now, we're at this kind of plateau where deaths are persisting in the US around 1,000 to 1,500 right now, but there's reason to believe that number is going to come down. Cases are down to about 60,000 per day, which is equivalent to where we were in kind of the summer peak of last year. So we haven't come down to this point where we've made this massive progress, and we're starting to see signs that the rate of decline is slowing a little bit. So a reason to be sort of cautious, but there are good signs all around. And the Johnson & Johnson vaccine being a single dose and shelf stable, meaning it doesn't have to be refrigerated, will allow vaccinations to get to locations, mostly like rural locations that are harder to reach by the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines because of the storage limitations. All super, super, super good news. There is updated guidance coming out of the CDC now. They released guidance 2 days ago around what you can or should not do if you're fully vaccinated. And fully vaccinated, defined by them, is 2 weeks after your dosage. They're saying if you're fully vaccinated, you can be with other people that are fully vaccinated outside of your household, as long as it's a relatively small gathering without masks. But in other situations, you should maintain your mask. So if you're vaccinated and with unvaccinated people, you need to have masks on and limit any contact that would be potentially indoors for that. And then limit gatherings in outdoor locations. And if you're encountering unvaccinated people, that you would maintain the kind of social distancing and masking norms that we're used to. But this is starting to sort of peel away the restrictions that we've had for about a year now in terms of recommendations of what to do. And because we've reached this point now where I believe as of yesterday, it was something like 65% of the population over 60 have now received at least one dose of a vaccine. We're getting to the point where, like, for all of us who have parents that have grandkids, we're now in a position where they're going to be able to potentially hug them if they've gotten their vaccine. That is a marked difference personally to where it is. And I think we're going to continue to see more updates as we learn more information about how these vaccines are performing in the real world. You're used to hearing numbers like efficacy. Efficacy is determined by things inside of clinical trials. As we exit clinical trials and now we're in real world situations, the word is effectiveness. And typically the effectiveness with all of these different variants circulating and other mitigating factors means like the effectiveness tends to be a little bit lower than what we see in clinical trials. We'll actually have data to actually look at that in more detail in the coming weeks. So as we pull that together, I think the guidance is going to continually update and evolve. I'll just say personally, I haven't gotten a vaccine dose yet. I'm planning on wearing a mask for a pretty extended period of time whenever I go to any sort of public location. But I am hoping to have small gatherings with my extended family, like my brother, sister, my parents, in the coming months once we get fully vaccinated, which will make a monumental difference to me mentally.
Absolutely. A couple things I want to... Oh, go ahead, Jeremy.
What do they say about just going for a walk outside once you've been vaccinated? Because currently everybody I see in San Francisco is wearing a mask everywhere that you go. if we're not stopping to talk to anybody, we're not within 6 feet of anybody once we're vaccinated, going outside on a walk, are we free to keep our mask off?
They still encourage you the CDC still encourages you when you're in public to wear a mask and socially distance where possible. We know from evidence that being outside, and especially if you're going on a walk, this is one of the safer activities you can do. It's been that way for a long time. I'm partially keeping my mask on even once I get a vaccine in those situations for a little while, just so we keep up the social norm of us wearing masks for everyone. I think there is like a social pressure that comes from walking down the street and seeing other people wear masks, where it's just like the normal thing to do. And so I'm just going to keep it up for the societal benefit, because it really doesn't affect my experience of going outside at this point either. But I'm hopeful that we'll get to a point where that recommendation will shift in a few months when more and more people get vaccinated.
And that's the thing. I think also the data, like as more information, the guidance is evolving because we're getting more information as more people are getting vaccinated. And as you said at the front, at the current trends, we're still talking about 6 months until 75% of people, and that's 75% if everyone who's eligible actually decides to get vaccinated. And that's still not quite the point where we're going to reach that herd immunity level that we really want to be before we feel comfortable. Until I feel comfortable walking around with a mask off. And then, the question I had though is, you were talking about 75% because the vaccines are not approved for younger people under 16, because that's just how the way the trials go. But I assume trials are happening concurrently. The trial periods, and I know they go from the oldest children to the youngest children and start approving in those age groups. But do those phase trials typically last longer or need to go longer than the adult phase trials because of age?
No, so they're doing a slightly different model here, where they're going to essentially be approving by sort of groups of ages. So you're going to start to slowly go down by, like, it'll be 14 to 16, and then 12 to 14,
Right.
and then 10 to 12. And each of those pieces of information, the updated guidance, is going to be based off of trials that are running now, where they look at that and get younger and younger and younger in terms of who's available to take this. So it's almost like a rolling basis that we're going to see some of this. But those trials, especially since we're talking about children and we can't mess around at all with safety information when it comes to kids, because the ramifications of that, and the fact that we're talking about kids that are going to go to school and be in congregate settings, much potentially more so than other adults, that they expect these trials won't fully be completed until next year. That doesn't mean if you're in that age range, you won't become eligible until next year necessarily, but this process will take a year or more to get to that requisite safety information level. So I just think, be prepared when it comes to kids that this is going to take time, and they're certainly not going to be receiving vaccine through this summer. I just don't have any expectations around that.
Yeah. And even when you talk about how the infection rate or the number of people who test positive has gone down, we're still talking about going down from a very high number to last summer's peak, right, where we were freaking out last summer. And think about the context, like and the fact that the decrease has been slowing, and we don't know if that's because of the variants or whatever. Like, there's still a lot of uncertainty, and so I think it's better to play it safe. Have you heard anything about, because anticipate the vaccination still roll out over, let's say, course of next year or so, any of the states or any local places doing any type of badging or any identification? Like, how do we know? Like, what is this going to be, kind of a trust system for people who've been vaccinated?
Yeah, so you do get a vaccination card. I highly encourage people not to take pictures and post those vaccination cards online, because they contain a lot of personal information that you should not make public.
That's what the guy who I followed to get my PS5 said about posting my orders.
Yeah,
a screenshot.
Well,
yeah,
I mean,
same
you
deal.
should humble brag that you have a PS5, but maybe not post the receipt. Is all
right.
all he's saying. So I think that's true. This is a complicated question, because people have talked about immunity passports going back years. There may be some workplaces that require vaccines going forward. you could even imagine sporting and concert events. We've heard Ticketmaster and Live Nation intimate they might ask this. At the end of the day, I think what we want to see is the pace of vaccinations pick up, that we're not asking those questions 6 months from now, that we're at a point where we can go to these large scale events because of what we're seeing in the evidence of transmission. But we're going to live in this period of uncertainty where there's going to be a lot of practices that I think are a little not data informed, I think is the best way to say it. I am personally uncomfortable with immunity passports at like events and public gatherings, because I think it creates like these really different social strata really quickly that I think can lead to all sorts of bad behavior that makes me fairly uncomfortable. I think we are going to see employers actually look at requiring certain employees to get the vaccine. I'm not sure if that's good public policy or not. There is a lot of enthusiasm in this country right now, and it's continuing to rise for the vaccine. But going back to what you said about herd immunity is calculated by taking 1 minus 1 over R, where R is the reproductive rate of the vaccine, like its potential to infect people. We think for this virus, and it depends on the variant, that it's between 70 and 85%. Only 75% of the population is eligible to take this thing. That means we'd have to get everyone to take it that is eligible to take it. We know roughly in the US about 15 to 20% of the population are actively saying they will definitely not take it. So there's really no pathway to herd immunity according to the strictest definition of the numbers. And I think what we can expect is heading into the winter, and there's some really good articles that have come out in some journals lately from some leading epidemiologists that we're probably going to prepare some boosters for the variants with updated instructions in the mRNA and the Johnson & Johnson adenovirus vector to deal with those variants, but also that we are going to see outbreaks, like probably smaller scale, not national in nature, but there are going to be outbreaks and moments that, depending on where you live, that you might go back to a social distancing regime for a short period of time because you have these smaller scale outbreaks happening. And so I think we should prepare mentally for the winter when we know that this virus, call it seasonality, call it whatever you want, tends to transmit for more frequently because of the nature of indoor gatherings. We should just prepare mentally that that's what this winter could be. So we're not going to like all of a sudden get to a point, even with the pace of vaccinations, that everything is going to go back to where we were 18 months or 12 months ago. I think it'll be better. We'll be able to do a lot of things that we want to do in a safe manner. We'll see the death rate decline pretty quickly, but there's going to be a new normal that we're just going to have to start preparing mentally for. I feel like I'm channeling myself from March of last year, where I was saying very similar things, where I was like, prepare yourself mentally for something like this.
And what we've seen since is the resistance for that. And I think it's being a tall order. You talk about this being a US centric analysis. And, I think the perspective here is people, when they want it to be over. They want mission accomplished. They don't feel like it's going to be really hard for people to get into the mindset of having to hunker down again.
It's not going to be the same way. It's going to look really different. It might be for a shorter period of time. It's hard to predict because it all depends on variants and how many people get the vaccine. But it's just not going to be perfect. And you shouldn't expect it. That being said, I'm really excited for this summer. I'm really excited for heading into this fall, what things are going to look like. There's reasons to be optimistic and be excited about how quickly we are emerging from this. It has been awful, but it could have been worse too. And I think we are heading in the right direction. And so I, for one, am going to drink up every last bit of that hope and optimism that is being channeled by the results of the past few months.
Yep. I'm resigned to not watching Black Widow in theaters when it comes out in early May. But if I can get 3 out of the 4 MCU movies in theaters toward the end of the year, I would call that a net plus.
I would bet good money the 3 of us will be vaccinated before that movie comes out.
but before the end of the year, Spider-Man.
No,
or
before
something,
Black
right?
Widow
Widow?
movie comes
Before
out.
May? Really? Ooh, I like it.
I thought
like
Fauci
it.
recently said most of the people will be vaccinated who want to be vaccinated by the end of June. So that's just 1 month before then, right?
So this is like a dual bet. It's a bet on
Oh.
when they'll release Black Widow and when we'll get vaccinated. That's what I love.
We're going to
about
get
it.
to the Disney shareholder call where they did confirm early May, and the standees have been going out to theaters. AMC has opened up theaters in New York, and I did get an email from AMC saying even the Metron Theater in San Francisco is opening up. Don't charge me my Stubbs A-list monthly subscription just yet. For Californians, there is a system in place where if you volunteer for 4 hours at a vaccine site, you will be eligible to get a vaccine yourself, be certified as a health worker. So that's an easy way for people who are younger to contribute and give back and also get vaccinated. All right, let's move on to pop culture. I'm also going to put a mental bookmark here for future where I do want you to do a science segment, Kishore, about mRNA vaccines, not just for COVID, but what it could potentially mean for other types of viral vaccinations in the future. Apparently, there's a lot of excitement about that, and I'm very, very curious.
Yeah, so look that up. Find out what that means.
Yes, mRNA vaccine. Yeah, Kishore knows. He knows. Okay. Over the weekend, we also had the Disney Plus debut of Raya and the Last Dragon. I think among us, we were very excited. Jeremy, you saw it first. I saw it over the weekend. Paid my $30.
$30.
Happy to support the people, especially the people who had to finish this movie at Disney Animation Studios in lockdown, much like the folks at Pixar had to do for Soul, and of course anyone who working in the movie business, working from home. Kishore, I know you haven't watched it yet, so I don't want to do a full spoiler review, but maybe some light spoiler-free talk. Jeremy, did you enjoy it? Did it meet your expectations?
Yeah, no, I thought it was great. Did it meet my expectations? Maybe not. Because from the reviews that were out on Twitter 2 weeks before it came out, I was sure this would be up there with, Moana and, Wreck-It Ralph and,
Whoa.
I liked, and Frozen 2, which I still hold as a great film. And it wasn't quite that good, but it was good. It was really good. And I think the characters in it are great. I just wasn't in love with the sound mix, wasn't like amazing. The animation didn't blow me away. There are some 2D transitional like storytelling segments that I think are great. Like that was really my favorite part of the movie from a visual standpoint, where they really just do some really cool things with traditional animation, techniques, but in 3D. And I loved watching the action sequences, awesome choreography, but the movie just didn't totally blow me away. What did you think?
I really loved it. It was one of those rare movies where I don't think I even saw the full trailer before because it's kind of almost under the radar. But because of the good reviews, because of the positive word of mouth, I absolutely wanted to support it and watch it. And I could tell there are moments where I could tell like maybe it lacked that final bit of polish that they could have gotten if all the animators were doing their same daily reviews in person. I mean, not maybe it was rushed or anything, but that like parts of the difficulty of having to work from home, I think, it's a little bit of lack of polish, especially early on in the movie, the kid scenes when they were the younger, like some of the facial animations felt a little bit off to me. It was also one of those movies that one of the rare Disney movies of late that wasn't a musical, didn't have any musical montage segments, right? Even if you think about like a Wreck-It Ralph, which isn't a musical, that still has like a big song.
Like
Zootopia
what?
has
Music
a
video.
song.
What? How?
Yeah.
Are you sure this is made by Disney?
Yeah, no song to go with the movie, right? No big montage-y, where they play like a pop song that becomes like the anthem for the movie. It was a straight up adventure film, and I really, really liked that. Aesthetically, it was beautiful. Some of the decisions they made with with the way they portrayed, the antagonists of the film and the way the antagonists affected the world. Like, it was very much a fantasy world, but kind of like it felt very much like a parable. Like they were like a world not of Earth, but would be the kind of fantastical story that you would tell kids. Every part of that felt very Disney-esque, right? And that, like, Disney films, princess films, are in these world places that aren't on Earth, but like in these fictional kingdoms. That felt very Disney, but of course with an Asian flavor to that. Um, there are dragons called Raya and the Last Dragon. The dragon design was probably the thing I cared least for.
It's a little too cute for me. Like
A little too My Little Pony.
little bit My Little Pony. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the word? Twee.
Yeah.
It was just, I think it's going to be a massive hit this Christmas. Like, you're going to see the stuffed animals everywhere, which is, good for Disney, good for the kids that get them. It just didn't work for me quite as much.
Do you find that these animated films, especially as parents, you're watching them and you find that they try to write a story where they try to have this really powerful or meaningful or poignant point or theme
Mhm.
that they land on at the end? That's like maybe not so a formula, but a thing that their kind of storytelling naturally goes toward, whether it's a Pixar film or a Disney film. You look at a Frozen, you can look at especially the Pixar films where there's like here is the capital T theme, or the life lesson in the movie. You find that that's like a thing that you like kind of are waiting for when you watch these films.
I try to get lost in it. Like, I try to just, discover that theme as it comes. I don't know if I try to predict it so much. There were certainly some unpredictable moments for me in this film, especially towards the end, where I thought I had a grasp on it, and then I was surprised.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say that the capital T theme of this movie came as a surprise. Like, it's very much about, let's come on, people, can we work together? We need to work together.
And I think the theme was like kind of expected, but I think the execution and the way they portrayed that in the characters, I think was really impressive and brave and actually divisive. It's almost like I find that it's this movie, as I'm reading forums and the audience reaction to it, it's almost like a Rorschach test for optimism and for just believability, because a lot of people that I found that don't like the way how they handled the ending of this film, because they thought that it was too optimistic, or that the lessons were that it was unfair or something. But I think that was very intentional. And the fact that they went so far with that ending, I think was really brave of them. So I love the ending of this movie.
I'm a little confused by this review from the two of you, because you're not making me excited about spending $30 on this. But it might also be that it's been a year since I've seen a movie in a theater, and I've forgotten how much it costs to go see a movie.
No parking needed. Yeah, $30 for the family. You got to watch. If you're watching it with a kid and three people, that's like going to a movie. I guess all depends on the screen and the experience you want to do. But we did the whole thing, same as Mulan. Turn down the lights, no pausing, no captions, nothing, and try to have as much of a theatrical experience as we did. I think that really helped get immersed in the movie.
I find if you tell your family that you're spending $30 to watch this, everybody feels more invested in it. So you could try that.
Yeah, but that doesn't work on everything. You can be like, I spent $30 on this pizza. Everyone enjoy it with the proper amount of focus.
Well, what you have to do is you could say we could eat this free pizza, or we could eat this $30 pizza.
Free pizza? No one's going to touch a free pizza.
Exactly.
We can eat this subscription-based pizza that we pay $7 a month for, or the premium premier access pizza that I'm only going to spend this one time, family. It's a model I think is not going to replace the theatrical model. I don't know if it's going to be sustained going forward when theaters reopen again. But in this interim time, when I'm not going to be going to a theater, I am happy to pay for it and support it. And if it allows for the caliber of effects and animation work, this is a multi-100-person team working for multiple years on this. I would rather see more of these films be made than a movie that's made with the expectation of it, with the return on investment being in the tens of millions. And then there are going to be plenty of those films as well, right? It's going to be a mix of those. But I want these big budget, what you consider tentpole animated features to still be made, because I still think there's a big place for that.
I disagree slightly. I think this model can work really well for indie and like Oscar level kind of movies, because I've rented a number of those movies at like $20 or whatever over the last year. And that's been really good. And they don't draw a huge box office. So this could be a real boon for that kind of mid-level movie that weren't attracting moviegoers in droves anyways before.
Yeah. Or the boutique subscription model, like a Criterion app or something like that. Speaking of Disney, there was a big Disney. Now I got to get this right. This is the shareholders call, which is separate from the investors call. Although, aren't investors also the shareholders? All right. There's a big, I guess it was late last year at the December, a huge number of things announced at investors call. Not so much announced here. A few things, few updates. Of course, the Black Widow release date sticking to May. There's the announcement for their theme parks. The big Ratatouille ride that I think they had in Disney Paris is now coming to Epcot this fall. 50th anniversary of that, of the Walt Disney stuff. So lots happening in that Disney universe. No word on the spaceship. What is it? Halcyon, Hyperion, one of the that big the starship that you can book rooms for.
The
hotel. Yeah. I'm personally hoping to be able to go back to a Disney theme park next year. Early next year is my personal bet. And also Bob Iger, even though he had stepped back in to right the ship, he said his goodbyes. So new Bob is back in charge. So and Kathleen Kennedy also staying in charge. Yeah, I can't believe they took that question from that shareholder. In Marvel news, this goes back to the whole culture of fan blogs and theorizing and, maybe for lack of a better phrase, the fake news in the fan world. But you had James Gunn coming out and putting his foot down on casting rumors that some blogs have put out about Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which he's filming this year. But no, there is no casting for Adam Warlock yet, despite what you may have read on some blogs. But hopefully that is a direction they'll be going in, because I would be interested in that character.
One moment, please. As resident Marvel nerd that makes things not fun about Marvel, all he said is they haven't cast a Warlock yet. That doesn't mean they're not going to. So he's refuting the post, sort of. And so, again, don't read into it too much. I think the fun part of this is it'll, like, that story opened up, who would you cast as Adam Warlock discussions online. That's fun. The whole this fan theory again, it's causing all sorts of problems for the film. Like, that's the not fun part that I want to avoid. But, I thought it was interesting that James Gunn said, I'm looking for a Zac Efron type, but not a Zac Efron. That was hilarious in the context.
If he wanted Zac Efron, he would have cast Zac Efron. It's not going to be Zac Efron. I agree. Fan casting, there is fun to be had there. Back in the buying Wizard magazine days, there's a whole regular section about their editors doing fan casting. That was one of the favorite beloved section. It's when people take it too seriously and get too zealous and become toxic about those theories that they create. Online movements for that. That I think that I'm super not into and take away from the fun that becomes toxic fandom. We're not going to get into a whole thing about toxic fandom, but we'll still say the Snyder Cut's coming out in a week and a half. Did you hear about the big Warner snafu, the HBO Max snafu?
No.
I heard about
Tom and Jerry.
This is a more than a snafu.
So Tom and Jerry is an animated film that was released on HBO Max last week. It was one of those big animated film releases that mixture of animated plus live action that was supposed to be in theaters, but of course it's going to just go in HBO Max for the time being. But for some people who queued up and started playing Tom and Jerry on HBO Max, they got the Snyder Cut, which is not out for 2 weeks.
What?
They just if you sat down with your kid and said, get ready for some silly cat chasing a mouse, animated fun, and then you press start and you see brooding Batman. Well, they got an hour into the 4-hour film before someone over at HBO Time Warner realized that the service was messed up and then cut off the streams. So
yeah,
no
that's
spoilers.
a big problem when you're watching
yeah.
a PG or G-rated movie and an R-rated movie comes on in its stead.
Yeah. Only a problem for services not Disney Plus, where everything is PG, maybe at most PG-13.
It is a sneaky way to get a lot of people to watch your Tom and Jerry movie, though.
Sure, the reviews have not been great. Okay, that is it for pop culture. Before we move on to our next segment, I want to let you know that This Is Only a Test this week also made possible with support, again, by Storyblocks. We all know that video is the most effective way to capture someone's attention, but the storytellers of today are challenged with creating more video content at a higher quality than ever before. Thankfully, Storyblocks makes it easy to keep up with the growing demands of modern video content, so you can bring all your stories to life and stop sacrificing your vision due to time, budget, or resources. Every creator should have a Storyblocks membership, and with their affordable subscriptions, you can stay on budget while telling the best version of your story. Storyblocks is an ever-growing library of 1 million high-quality stock assets, including 4K footage, After Effects, and Premiere Pro templates, music, images, sound effects, and more, and the assets are royalty-free. And with the unlimited all-access plan, you get unlimited downloads of everything in the Storyblocks library, just completely whatever you want to download. If you're a member of a large creative team, marketing agency, or media organization, Storyblocks has your back with comprehensive coverage for your entire company that enables you to distribute wherever and whenever. Learn more and subscribe today at storyblocks.com/onlyattest. Once again, that's storyblocks.com/onlyattest. Couple phone bits of news to quickly cover. There's a report out from the business site Nikkei that Apple has massively cut back on their iPhone 12 productions and their planned productions for the first half of this year, leading up to their phone announcements. In addition to especially in the mini iPhone mini. Do you guys know anyone with the iPhone 11 mini?
No.
It was such a big deal amongst and maybe this is an example of just kind of how out of touch, people who are vocal about this stuff are with the mainstream.
I think the people who have that phone are the people with the little toy dogs and the tiny handbags, and
so you're not a fan of the mini phone.
A lot of money to spend. Like it's Gucci handbags. It's like I feel like what happened?
I think you're wrong.
Yeah.
Because I think the people with those, if you're categorizing a mainstream person with a toy dog and a Gucci handbag, I think it's more likely that they have the big phone.
Okay.
And I think that the mini only appeals to people who are maybe very nostalgic about the original phone size or the iPhone 5.
I'll tell you the flaw in your logic. Those people are going to need glasses because they're old. And the people who have the new phone have young eyes because it's a tiny screen.
But I think intellectually, I'm a big fan of tiny screen. I would go for the mini if the mini had the same camera system, had no compromises in the camera system.
Yeah.
As the full size phones, and especially since even the Max phone has, like, even between the full size ones, the Max one has the best camera system, and maybe Apple is resistant to packing in the thick camera stack onto a smaller phone, but conceptually, I like the idea of the mini. Because yes, battery life is less, but I use the magnetic charger. It's a lighter phone. I like the idea of being able to navigate with one hand easily. But I think the market research shows, and especially it's one of the reasons Apple went into the larger 6.5 inch phones, and Samsung was early to this, was because people like big phones. like they just like being able to see more and having more video screen and having more for their video games and more for their photos. A bigger canvas for their content um, is appealing when you're paying $1,000 for a phone.
Right.
I don't know if that's eaten into people buying tablets. And I don't know, especially the 7-inch tablet, because we're talking about the iPad at 7 inches, iPad Mini. It's very close in size, different aspect ratio than the iPhone Pro Max. But even though they're both iOS, I think people also functionally think of them as different types of computing devices. You're typing an email, you're browsing the web differently on an iPad, or maybe you're using the pen, you're doing some productivity different on the iPad than you are on the phone, even though they're essentially using the same generation of chipset and they can run basically the same applications.
If you're a listener and you have a mini phone, I'm sorry to have pigeonholed you. If you do happen to have a Gucci handbag and a toy dog, then I nailed it. But otherwise,
Please
maybe
send
not.
your most recent optometrist visit prescription to @Jareware on Twitter.
But yeah, the report is that it will maybe be phased out or just be in smaller quantities, but definitely not as successful as Apple had anticipated. And regardless of what a deal, the phone is cheaper. It has a great one-handed form factor. Same generation of chips. The only thing for me it doesn't have is the camera system. But it's just I think there's a mainstream appeal of having a bigger phone. We've moved past that 5-inch form factor, unfortunately, in my mind. Samsung's having on March 17th, so a week from today as we're recording this, their next Galaxy Unpacked event. They're calling it the Galaxy Awesome Unpacked. So the idea is that they're going to be showing off their Series A, the Galaxy A series of phones, and which will live alongside the Galaxy S series. So they did their S21, S21 Ultras, their big flagship $1,000+ phones, and so this is maybe a more affordable line to live alongside that. Maybe their mini line. Starting at $400-$500 is what the rumor says. No interest here because everyone's an Apple user. And Kishore, I'm sorry, the Pixels basically, Google has not done well for the Pixel.
Hey, I got an email about new features that they promised almost a year ago. No, I can't even fake it. Sorry.
Jeremy, you're in the Sonos family of products, right? You have the big your sound bar is a Sonos.
I think I'm not as much in the family as they would like. Sonos wanted to be what Alexa has become for my family. They wanted to be the thing that you use in every room. But I do have the Sonos soundbar, the Arc, and the full surround system. Yeah, and I love it. Like, I will say that the sound quality from that unit is marvelous.
Well, they are introducing something in that small portable speaker price range called the Sonos Roam, and it's shipping on April 20th, $170, and it looks a lot like the kind of portable speaker, the kind of small miniature, cylindrical desktop speaker that an Echo lives alongside. So this is more kind of a competition for those like Logitech UE travel speakers, those Bluetooth speakers, but they are banking on their sound quality, and of course with AirPlay Bluetooth support. I don't know is there smart assistant integration.
It's like cost them nothing to add Echo support. I wouldn't be surprised if it's in there.
I don't think so. They have microphones, so I think it's supposed to like tether to a network and tap in, but maybe not built in because it's some licensing fee, or they want to build their own. I think the whole point is that Sonos wants to get back in the game of being the speaker you have in every room. Remember back in the day when Sonos came with like a little tablet controller that you can direct your output, and that completely got supplanted by smartphones.
And it has support for Alexa and Google Assistant.
Okay, so it's built in Select for that, and I guess the microphone systems for that as well.
I was looking into the Bolt EUV again, and I noticed that it has Echo support over OnStar, and I don't know if another car that does that.
So it gets the cellular internet connectivity over OnStar, so you don't have to pair your phone to it. Right. OnStar you're piggybacking on that wireless service. but you're getting functionality like your
Music
playlists
library. Yeah.
or tapping into your skills at home, so you
Right.
can your family devices to turn on your house lights or something as you're driving home.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I can see that as being useful. Um, it's not something I ever think about. Like, the cars have voice commands, but whenever I think of a voice command, it is like the most frequent voice command is navigation or making a phone call. I don't even like doing the voice commands for text messages in cars because I never find those. The attention it takes to verify a text message and to think about the wording, I think that's just takes away from driving.
That's
But
because Tesla has kept you away from CarPlay. And I honestly think
true.
if you can access everything you know about your phone over your voice, you'd like it.
Like, what's your most frequently used CarPlay feature? Is it text messaging?
No, it's probably playing music, but certainly texting is right up there.
Yeah,
I
and good.
it's hard to hear you talk about cars as I drove 29 miles last month. And like this whole like getting used to cars thing again and all these features being useful, I'm not prepared for it.
Yeah. Do you think? I mean, the cars are selling really well these days, despite the pandemic. And I don't know if car sales have not lagged, especially in the smart cars. And car manufacturers are still coming out with those new models. I saw a Polestar 2 in San
Really?
Francisco. Yeah, yeah. I was like, what is that? It looked like a weird design. The logo is this like kind of a snowflake like thing, and it was like very aggressively designed. And it's an all electric car. It has that 230-mile battery, but it stylistically looked fantastic. I just couldn't tell what it was until I got up to it. I was like, wow, it's a Polestar 2. Cool, it's neat. And then lastly, a story out of Business Insider says that Amazon is working on, get this, they have 800 people working on a home robot that will kind of go around your house and become like a portable, movable, autonomous smart assistant. What can you see this Project Vesta actually being useful for?
Wait, really? This is
Yeah.
an Amazon robot?
It's the report is out of their laboratory. They have a robot called Vesta, and they have almost 1,000 people working on this device.
What?
A domestic robot. And it's their Skunkworks division is called Lab 126. Their hardware research out of Sunnyvale, and it's where they have developed their Fire tablets and their Echo speakers. But that they've been working on this for years, but only this past year they've ramped up the hiring, dozens of listings for robotics engineers to work here. Amazon obviously not commenting on the rumors.
I don't know, man. Boston Dynamics stuff is like incredibly expensive. And look at it's amazing. But what's its utility? And so what is Amazon going to bring to the table that's any more useful?
I will not allow you to besmirch the good name of Jibo with your sullying of this idea that home robots are not useful things.
Robot's a very broad term, right? I think form factor is something we went completely opposite ends of the spectrum, because you immediately, Jeremy, went to Boston Dynamics, 4-legged, quadrupedal robot that walks around, and Jibo is a stationary robot, doesn't walk around but has a rotating head.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They have a device that's with their speakers, they have things that have the ears and the mouth. Right, and they have screens, so they have displays. If this is going to be something that's going to be different, then I assume mobility will be a part of it. So wheels, but then we're talking about something that's the size of a small pet, a dog, is something that lives on the tabletop, the kitchen top, or are we talking about something that's more like the kind of waist high, like hotel or mall robots that roll around and provide information?
But what does it do? Does it do your ironing for you? Does it change the laundry? Does it take the dishes out?
No. This is.
I think it's a reasonable question in the context that every other thing they built with assistant features in it has been an integration into a product that already existed for the most part. Like, whether it be an alarm clock for the Spot, the Echo being like a speaker, even like, a microwave you can get you know,
So this is a
integration with this
refrigerator that
is
runs, right? This is just a
yeah. So
refrigerator
like
running.
if you're talking mobility, the only thing with mobility in our houses is potentially like a vacuum cleaner right now. So it either has to be like a new category of thing, which would be like Jibo style, maybe with motion, um, or it has to be something that we just haven't dreamed of yet, because nothing moves around my house besides my Roomba right now. And the only class of electronics that I can think of that I don't have Assistant integrated into yet is a camera, but essentially that's what my phone is, right? So I'm not sure of what the electronics class that this would be. So I think the Boston Dynamics thing that Jeremy's going to is actually the right way to think about this if you're talking about mobility around the house.
Maybe
Like,
it's a massage chair.
With wheels. It's a
Yeah.
wheelchair.
I don't know.
It's like a Professor X style. You know, you cradle into the arms
Yeah.
of the robot, and it hugs you and it comforts you with the back massage while providing, you know, the dulcet tones of Jack Johnson.
And
played
buying
by-
suggestions.
Yeah, and buying and listens. Of course, it listens so well. It listens to everything you want and need. You need a refill on that ketchup? Sure, you can have it in your fridge. I think, sure, you're on the right track in terms of product development of a thing that becomes the advanced, quote unquote, smart version of an existing appliance. And the kind of robotics appliance, the thing that moves around, is people kind of accepted into everyday home use, is the Roomba. So they can build this as well. If you're going to have a robot roll around and sweep your floors or mop your floors, why not also add in some additional functionality, like, you know, storing a place to put your remote controls or your phone. It'll charge your phone and bring it to you. Or, you know,
I know what you're saying. I watch Parks and Recs. DJ Roomba in the house. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. The fact that they're talking about potentially hiring up to 1,000 people to work on this says that they're treating it seriously. I'm sure they're looking at price points. You know, they always heavily subsidize their electronics because they want to be in every room of your house. And maybe this is the device that, yeah, as long as you don't got stairs, I guess you got the square footage. Maybe a backyard robot. Ooh, yeah, something to play. You know,
Backyard.
fetch and with the dog, or kickball with the kid.
So you can play your
Go for
Switch.
that. Well, we'll chuck under the rumor mill. Lots of rumors today in Tech News section. And before we wrap up, let's do a quick VR minutes. Here we go. The VR minute. Virtual reality this week. Okay, just a quick bit. I know we keep on putting off. We're going to devote a big segment next week to talking about the Big Population 1 update, because there's a lot to talk about there. But some product announcements quickly. HTC has 2 new accessories for the Vive system. So this is interesting. First of all, they've updated their Vive Puck, the tracking beacon. It's $130, much longer battery life. It's going to launch in 2 weeks on March 24th. So the Vive tracker, if maybe businesses are using it for development, or, you know, to develop their LBEs or whatever, that it still works with the SteamVR base tracking beacons. Improving on that makes sense. It's about time. But the other interesting thing, maybe the more interesting product, is a facial tracker, which is an add-on to mount under the Vive Pro headset. So this is not for the Cosmos. And this is akin to the facial tracker prototype that they had developers test back in 2019, but this is going to be available to any consumer. But the facial tracker uses 2 cameras at 60 hertz to track, to look at your mouth and give basically to convert that data into whatever developers want to turn into an avatar system.
I wonder why they needed 2 cameras. Like, why did they need stereo for that?
That's a good question.
Because I mean, even a single camera there would be amazing. In order,
Yes.
just if you're doing person-to-person multiplayer experiences and you want to be able to see the other person's face, actual or mouth anyway, mapped onto their avatar, that'd be great.
And you would assume that even with a single camera, you feed enough information into some neural network, and you're going to get the accuracy. You know, mouths can only move so much,
Right.
and it's all lit because there's an IR light also. So, you know, but I presume the dual, if stereo is indeed what's happening here, you're just going to get better, you're going to get depth,
Yep.
right? And maybe the tongue, maybe the mouth movements, it's not just lips, but it's also right, because they say it can do lips, jaw, teeth, tongue, chin, and cheeks. That's a lot of subtle stuff to maybe it's field of view, because your cheek on one side, a camera that can get one cheek isn't necessarily at a wide angle lens, the fidelity to get the camera the view on the other cheek. So if you want to get if you're a one-sided dimpler, if you only have a dimple on one side, then this got you. This facial interface got you. They said latency is about 6 milliseconds. And what's interesting is that this tracking technology for face stuff, really, I think the avatar ecosystem is going to kind of explode in the next coming years. We see digital performers, these kind of the hologram vloggers, right, have become a big thing in Asia. The digital avatars becoming personalities, and a lot of that is performance captured with this type of technology, with tracking beacons, with optical tracking, and having more precise mouth tracking as opposed to just using audio to do kind of static moving mouths. I think is a big step toward that. But for the Vive Pro only, and $130 for each of those.
And the Vive Pro doesn't have eye tracking out of the box. Like, you need the Vive Pro Eye for that, right? They have a special unit for that.
And I think that's why this is made for the Vive Pro, because Vive Pro is supposed to be made as a development platform for people to do these kind of accessories, to do like the pass through video, to put on accessories. All kind of feeds off that HTC incubator program where they were seeding money to third-party hardware manufacturers to make these add-ons. Facebook also did a big post mapping out 10 years of looking for of AR design. And a lot of this is stuff that we've kind of expected with their acquisition. So they really have talked about how the wrist interface, that kind of that company they bought that has you wear these wristbands to track your movements, your hand movements, but also very subtle, like that kind of intentionality that you can get out of just the biometric signals coming out of your wrist becomes their neural input for AR. They think the nearer term development will be a wrist-based input combined with contextualized AI, so maybe some audio AI, but I think ideally they're going to move into a world where it's going to be no controllers, and you're going to wear something that's going to be for their AR glasses, because everyone's moving toward AR, that you can operate in the real world without putting your hands out. You can basically have passive hands in your pockets and still control an interface, and just use eye tracking and these kind of neural signals.
You think there'll be game interfaces that they sell separately? Touch controllers that work with the device but don't come in the box?
I think that's going to be, ideally, that's probably going to feel like a niche thing. I could see the transition over 10 years being hand tracking, optical hand tracking becoming the new normal, right? And if you need haptic feedback, then you buy the controller, a supported controller as an accessory. Otherwise, you would be using your keyboard that's tracked, or some type of traditional input, or your eye tracking and these kind of these wristband interfaces. Yeah, you lose haptics definitely when you don't have a physical controller. But the kind of trigger, the analog haptics really are only for, like you said, for games. You don't need that for browsing the web or whatever the AR UX is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I do worry about that, because one, like, they've built years and years and years of customer base, and they've evolved that platform of VR and the touch controllers and everything that can be and do now. And I would hate to see that not a part of augmented reality. But on the other hand, like, I can't think of very many controllers that were successful that didn't come in the box for whatever platform they work with.
Well, because I don't think AR is, the type of AR games are not, they're going to be fundamentally different from VR games. VR games simulate, like, the reason you have a controller, because the benefit of a touch controller initially is, without hand tracking, it gave the system an input that approximated poses. You get many, with hand tracking being optimized, you get many orders of magnitude, potentially more pose data than you get with just capacitive buttons on a controller. So really, the benefit then is just the haptic feedback, like the feeling of gripping something or depressing a trigger, and that only makes sense in the context of traditional gaming. And I think the AR games are going to be more about like more natural gestures and interactions with things. The haptic feedback you get is touching physical objects in the real world that you get augmented things on, with a mix of interacting with holograms, grabbing things.
Sign me up for that, but I disagree. Like, I don't think it's going to be exclusively that, or even maybe that the best games are going to be that. The Magic Leap multiplayer shooter was incredible and augmented reality, but it did use the controller. Like, you did aim your gun, you pulled the trigger to fire it. I do think that there will always need to be that level of like passive haptics, or even just like, the button presses itself being that moment in time level of control that the player is going to need to play games.
You don't think optical tracking gives you that amount of responsiveness or satisfactorily? Like, yes, there's going to be a little bit of latency with the optical tracker recognizing your finger has depressed a certain number of millimeters or hit a certain point on a dumb controller to trigger, an activation. And you're always going to get the electrical signal fastest if you have a tether controller. But even the touch controllers are wireless. You have latency already built into the system with a wireless signal.
I think it's about measuring intention, which has not been proven yet, that any level of visual or even electrical measurement can measure intention to that moment of intention that a gamer has when they intend to press a button, like that level of microsecond, accuracy.
I think their bet is that over time, with neural training and with direct neural contacts with the wristbands, they can detect intention faster than your physical. Because think about it, your intention, the signal time transferring brain to finger to a depressing button, if they can anticipate through training of your biometric signals, they can anticipate when you think you're going to press a button or when you want to press a button and calibrate it. And that's their bet, that's going to be more accurate than you actually pushing a button. And maybe you just get a dumb controller and that, to spec for whatever game dev wants.
Even if that's true, we still don't get that passive haptic feedback. And I think we'll miss it.
3D print it yourself.
Yeah.
I also agree. Like, if you think of an analogy of like Tetris, right? Like, yes, you could play a Tetris game where I'm dragging the blocks down, but the shorthand of just thumb movements, because ergonomically the robustness and the responsiveness of just finger movements, the amount of nerve endings you have there, the amount of dexterity you have, you can abstract so much with just tiny finger movements. Is the reason why keyboards work and why mice work. I would rather do that as a thing of comfort. I'd rather play a game of Tetris with controllers than doing a big gesture, dragging a block down, just for over time how easily. And I think that's a thing that we saw in VR initially. People thought big movements would be fun because they have these perfect motion analogs, but controllers are, it turns out, that's why free locomotion is so appealing, because it's not physically taxing. I can just use a thumbstick and walk around. Yeah. All right, that does it for our episode this week. We'll be back next week with another episode. We have an outro this week
I want to plug a couple things real quick. I'm testing a massage gun, which I bought super late on Amazon because I've been working out more. I can't tell if it's totally voodoo magic or if it actually works. I'll talk about it later. A Moral Man from Derek Delgadio, I finished. It's excellent. Great read. Great accompaniment to In and of Itself. And next Wednesday, I'll be talking to Walter Isaacson as part of a Commonwealth Club event. He's the author of the Steve Jobs biography. We're talking about his new biography on Jennifer Doudna, who invented the CRISPR technology.
Oh, fantastic. And that'll be a remote over Zoom type thing?
Yep.
For the Commonwealth Club. Awesome. And you can find all of that on social media when Kishore tweets about it at Science Quiche. You can find Jeremy's projects at Jerware, and you can find all of Tessa's stuff here. Follow me at NChan or at TestedCom. Here's this outro from Great Job. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll see you next week.
Hi there, I didn't see you. Tested.
Who exactly? Who wants to live on the? Yeah, I want.
I want to live on the Millennium Falcon.
Who really? It's not really that.
No, I'm
comfortable.
okay with being uncomfortable.
Space Monk?
Millennium Falcon. Chewbacca can spoon me if I can sleep on the Millennium Falcon. I don't care.
Wow, $1,000 a night.
I don't know if I'd pay $1,000 a night to get Chewbacca to spoon me. He seems like he might be a little smelly.
It's gonna be expensive.
Oof.
We need new outros.